Welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lori Zimmerman with MASA, and we are very excited to welcome you to a topic that you might not even know that you needed to know something about, and that is around P cards. And I will show my age a little bit and say, boy, have P cards changed since our district first started implementing them. So I am excited to welcome Beth Smith from PFM Financial Services here to talk about that, and Tiffany Guston from MSBA to also kind of have a school board's perspective around that. And I'm sure she will pull out her business manager hat from time to time. So welcome. And Beth, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, let's get started. Then I'll start by sharing my screen. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let me just get it in the presentation mode. And there we go. Can everybody see that? Okay. Can you see it?
No.
I cannot see it yet. Nope.
Oh, okay. Let me try. Well, let me try this again.
We promised it's working well 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I know it's because there's an extra box I didn't click there. So
there you go.
Hopefully I will be able to get this going now. Sorry about that. As you can see, I'm very tech savvy. How about now?
Looks good, Beth.
Good, great. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm going to quickly jump. We have a quick, kind of straightforward agenda. We have what are purchasing cards, maximizing the use of your purchasing cards, optimizing the online platform that might be available, as well as best practices and program highlights. Before I get started, I just want to quickly mention purchasing cards, procurement cards, or P cards are all pretty much the same thing. But what they do is reference a special type of credit card that allows you to make electronic payments for a variety of purchases for your district. It initially was designed to facilitate small dollar purchases by your employees. However, it quickly became a go-to payment mechanism for larger purchases of goods and services. P cards can help you streamline some of your purchases, provide better tracking of purchases, and can reduce operational expenses on the overall procurement of goods and services. Additionally, using P cards can help optimize your cash flow because you're able to make purchases more quickly, helping you obtain goods and services faster than the regular check process. And however, you may not have to pay for them until 2, sometimes even 3 weeks later when the bill is due, which helps you keep your cash invested longer. P card is a product that is effective, efficient, and provides you with an opportunity to earn cash rebates on the money that you have to spend already. So procurement cards or credit cards, what are the difference? Sometimes when I work with districts, I hear from them that they already have a P card program because they have either a district credit card with their local bank or credit cards with a vendor. They all look the same, but in many cases, they are not. One main difference of P cards and a credit card is that a true P card program allows you to take advantage of credit card infrastructure that regular credit cards don't offer. P cards provided the director of finance, the business manager, purchasing manager, the ability to set a wide variety of controls and policies that are necessary to manage your program. I'll go through the controls in a little more detail, but the benefits of this type of card or program gives you the ability to control, if you want, where and how your cardholders can use their cards. The key benefits, this is a corporate liability versus individual liability. So what does that really mean? That just means that they reside under the district's tax ID number. No one, not the program administrator nor your cardholders, have to disclose their social security number, which is really important because first of all, most employees don't want to disclose that social security information for that purpose, but you don't want the district credit card to appear on their credit limit. So if the program you're considering or if you currently requires you to provide that information, I would look for another program. I do want to stress that unlike regular cards, you can't float your balance. You can pay at different increments of time, but basically the bill must be paid in full each month. Unlike, it's more than just the credit limit that you set on these cards. You can have 5 cards with the same credit limit, or you can decide to have 50 with 50 different limits. With a P card, you can set those credit limits individually. And finally, it provides you a better mechanism for tracking your purchases and expenses. The program, the administrators can monitor and control all the purchases, and they have full oversight of what's happening on your card program with the use of the back end, which is typically the online platform. And you have up-to-date tracking of expenses of who, what, when, where, or purchases were made. And in some cases, depending on the vendor that you're dealing with, they may include additional information about the purchase itself. Okay. So it's maximizing the use of your purchasing card. You could reduce the cost by changing you can reduce it by changing the mechanism of the way you pay. So we're talking about changing checks to card, utilize different types of card types for efficiencies, and the playbook. Just to kind of give you a little background, back in 2003, we were exploring alternative ways to pay bills and looking for something to replace the physical checks. There are several reasons. It was, primarily due to fraud. Checks are still, even today, in today's environment, they're still the most fraudulent item out there. And then you also used to have check float, but that doesn't happen anymore. And checks are just super costly to actually administer. So issuing a check from start to finish, there's actual studies of doing that. It costs somewhere upward of $70 when you start taking the time that it takes to create the check, to follow the check, and then reconcile the check. So people are spending hours on this. So we started exploring and came across the P cards. And this product, we're like, wow, this could accomplish a lot of the things that we needed, which was to reduce potential fraud, and then facilitate the purchases faster. And then all of a sudden, it came with the opportunity to earn a cash rebate. So that was really why we got started. And with that, we kind of started thinking about ways, what if you could change the way you pay in order to facilitate another revenue? It's more like the cherry on top. It's a way to generate a rebate, and just simply changing the way you pay. We first used to say, well, change your PO process, and people looked at it and said, no, I need my physical check. Or my POs. And we're saying, do not change from your PO process. We just want you, when you get to that last step, if you have the opportunity, if your vendor will take a card for the payment, then that's what we recommend you do. So instead of cutting the check, you can give them the card number, and then that would facilitate the payment as well as generate the spend that you could then potentially earn a cash rebate. This next slide, every year we ask the bank to produce for us a data dump of the vendors that take the card for payment. So we do currently have over 150 participants in the Minnesota side of the program, all school districts, and this is the top spend. So what we do is we take all of the information and then roll up all the vendor spend to the highest. So we just pick off the highest amount spent with these vendors. There's hundreds of more vendors, maybe thousands of more vendors that will take the card. This is simply representing the top spend. And you can imagine at this point, Amazon is probably our biggest, the instance where we have our biggest spend from our clients. And what's nice is if you take advantage of the Amazon business application, so that's where you allow your employees to go in and set up a purchase that has to be approved maybe internally before the purchase is generated. Amazon will take the card as the source of payment. So it may give you an opportunity of keeping that infrastructure that even Amazon provides, which is a very nice system where you can approve purchases before they're even made. But they will take the credit card as the source of payment. So this, again, gives you that opportunity of potentially earning the cash rebate. So hopefully you see some of the names that you guys work with. But like I said, there's plenty more. If you ever were interested in seeing what vendors of yours actually take it, they do something called a vendor scrub. The listing is a little easier because we can give you the list of all the things without making you have to do work. But if you're ever interested in finding out if what percentage of your vendors would take the card, we can do something called a vendor scrub. And they just basically take your information. We would need all the information about the vendor, and then they would go ahead and run it against their database. So once you have we have different card types, and so one of the opportunities you have is to actually take a look and maybe take an opportunity to use one of the card types that suit best the district. You don't have to, in many cases, you do not have to eliminate or choose just one of the list. You can choose multiple. And we have some that actually use all four types of cards because it just works for different instances. So starting with the traditional card, it's a plastic card that's issued. It's a card that actually replenishes each month. And all of the cards that you have will have 2 lines of embossing. So that in a traditional card, that just means an individual. So one of your employees' name would be on the card. And then the second line could have whatever you want. You could have the district's name on there. You have 21 characters. So as long as it fits in that name, you can actually include your tax ID number. So we have some clients who actually put the tax ID number with their acronym so that it makes it handy. On all card types, just so you know this, well, with the exception of fleet cards, but all of these type of cards that you'll utilize, they don't prevent taxes from being paid. So just a reminder, all your card holders need to be told, and they should know that they must tell the vendor that you are tax exempt. I have some people that have the little card that has the information that they need to give that supplier or vendor, but these cards, you can put it on the front, and it really is just for a source of reminder. The declining balance card is also a plastic card issued. But what's different about this card is it allows you to put a set dollar amount. So instead of every month the credit limit that you gave them replenishes, the declining balance card, you put a set dollar amount. This works really well for like teacher supply budgets. So some people, if you don't want to, the supply budgets and reimbursing teachers tend to be the most expensive things because usually it's small dollar amounts. But you have an opportunity to put, say, $100. If the annual budget for them is $100, you put $100 on the card. It is only a memo credit. It's not, you don't have to pay the money up front. But as the teacher is making purchases throughout the year, the card will deplete. And once it hits 0, then the balance is out. So that's the declining balance card. A ghost card is just a card that there's no plastic. So some people use you can use it's a cardless card that you can utilize for online purchases. They give you a letter with the same information. This is great for like the AP department. We have some people that choose to put the ghost card in individual vendor names. So if you deal with Verizon Wireless and you want to leave that number on file, you can have a separate number just for Verizon, and it'd be just Verizon Wireless. And you can deploy these for even reoccurring expenses. So if you have say a contract with Pitney Bowes or Xerox, you can go ahead and get a ghost card just for them, leave that number on file. So each month they could come in and debit the account. And then our final card is the department card. So this is also physical plastic. It's also, the card has a monthly credit limit that reoccurs. But anyone in the department can actually use the card. So there's no name on it. So say maintenance, maybe there's high turnover in your maintenance department. So you can have a card that says maintenance. We have a lot of districts that tons of cards out there that are department cards. We have some schools that don't want to have petty cash or small dollar amounts, or have somebody else do it. So they have at the building level, they may have an admin card. So they, in the principal's office, their administrative assistant has a card that can be used by multiple. They can come and check it out. Say they have to go and there's a retirement party and there's a cake being bought. So they can use the card to go get that and come back. This way you don't have to reimburse that person for the money. And that alleviates that. We also have some people that use it for travel. So say, you have teachers, maybe you don't have a card for the teachers, but you want them to go to a conference once a year. You can have travel cards set up. So it's like Travel One. I have districts with Travel One, Travel Two, Travel Three. And that's because they usually go and pay, like there's usually more than one person going. So they have a travel card and it can be used by anybody. So it says Travel One, so that they don't have to put that expense on their own individual card. So ways to, maximize the use is to explore the options that you have with these different card types. And like I said, the other thing I'd like to mention is that we have a MasterCard-based program, but there's something called a one card. And basically the one card just means that you can make any type of purchases. You can purchase gas, or you can purchase travel, or just regular retail store purchases. So changing the playbook. So what is that? Things to consider when you're trying to maximize your program. It really is important to get the board, the superintendent, and the department's leaders to help reinforce the program. It's really a benefit. I love hearing when I hear stories about people having, like even in the business office, they have a board of how the spend's going, because they're really shooting to get a nice rebate. But it really is helpful when the leaders see it as a benefit, as a really good mechanism for paying for things. We also recommend that if wherever you can, make that the primary payment method. Don't just if there's any opportunity where you can replace that check, consider using the card. And then utilize the different card types that I talked about just previously. And then always try to issue, if I know people like to keep it tight because they're concerned about too many cards being out there. And if that's the case, that's okay. But we do say the best thing for you to do is really get the cards in the hands of the people that are making those purchases for you, so that they can facilitate fast acquisition of those services or even goods. And then make sure that that's where that's where those cards reside, with those folks that are doing that. Again, it's an immediate pay to the vendor. So what's nice is sometimes we've seen people get discounts as a result. So if you're paying the faster, that sometimes the vendors, especially smaller ones, don't want to front the money. They need to give you the product, and then sometimes they don't. So they rather get the payment faster. So you can do that. It adds, value back to your staff in the business office, because this is eliminating some of that process of those processing at the checks. And it does reduce the cost of acquiring those goods and services. And then one thing that not everybody knows about, but you are not required to 1099 the vendor. So if you're paying a vendor by P card, you do not need to pay. You do not have to 1099 them. So sometimes that's a headache trying to grab that the W-9 to get the information necessary to 1099 that vendor. So that is eliminated. So it's another little perk of maximizing that card use. Right there is going to stop and see if anybody had any questions about the previous section.
We do have a couple questions, Beth. Thanks for stopping. One question is around the extra cost some vendors will add when we use a card versus paying by check.
That's a great question, and it's something that's popping up more frequently. So very honestly, if the vendor is going to pass on charges to you, it generally, if it's a flat fee, then it's okay. Generally speaking, it's not advantageous to pay them 3% upfront to utilize the card. The one thing that we are noticing, though, is if the vendor does offer net 10 terms, it becomes a business decision whether that purchase is you could theoretically get a discount for paying in advance. So maybe that 3% when you're getting 10% back is not so bad. So yes, we do see that it's starting to become, but we also, in addition to that, challenge to, take advantage and make a decision whether it's worth using the card or not, because even for efficiency sometimes and acquiring those goods and services, it's a trade-off. The other thing is that, we're seeing that you're keeping the money invested, you're getting a rebate. So again, you can look at those different things. Sorry about that. I just lost my train of thought.
Perfect. We had a second question. I know you had an earlier slide that indicated, I think you called it a vendor scrub, like who accepts the P card. Does not everyone take a P card? One of the comments is that everyone takes our credit card, but is this something that would perhaps be more limiting then?
Absolutely not. If they take the card, then you're good to go. So the vendor, sometimes people want to know before they get even involved. They want to know, well, how many, is it worth my while to enter into and doing this? So the vendor scrub came in handy when they wanted to say specifically who of their vendors would take the card. But if you're using that list is all Minnesota school districts that are using the card, and those vendors are taking the card. So if you have people that are taking the card, then they won't know the difference. It doesn't say on there, this is a purchasing card or something. It just, it's a one card. So it looks like everything else.
Great. Thank you. Those were the questions that were submitted in the chat. Any other questions from the group before Beth continues?
Oh, and then one thing, I just remembered what I was going to say really quickly about that. A lot of people, when you're negotiating for purchasing, you're sending out an RFP, the other thing that we recommend is you can always include in the language that it's your preferred method of payment, and put it out there, because you'll have some people that will say, yep, we'll take the card because we'll get paid faster. So you can put it in there. It doesn't preclude anybody from bidding. It's just saying, you're just saying that that's our preferred method. And if you do take the card, do you charge us? So it's that was what I wanted to add. I apologize. So I'll jump into the next section. So most systems that you'll be dealing with, they'll provide you with an online platform. And this online platform is really intended to empower your program administrators to have full oversight of the online platform for any pending transactions, card activities. You can see when a card is declined. You'll be able to hopefully open and close cards, and then manage credit limits real time, as well as blocking tables. It'll also assist the business office to efficiently process these transactions and give you the opportunity to download the information so that you can pull it into your accounting software. And then the platform also offers the ability, in some cases, to add transactions. So if, coding, attaching receipts, and then an internal, a post-purchase approval process. And that's really when, if you want to go to the next step, which is actually integrating that process. I'll talk about that in a second. So the first screen here is just a sample. A lot of them all look very similar, but for the most part, if let's put it this way, if you have your folks coding in your accounting software, it's probably, and it does everything that you need to do. It's always good to leave them in there and let them code in that environment, because they're used to it. It's not another change. And And if it's working for you the way you need it, then it's best to leave it there. However, if you are having, folks use a card and they're taking the receipt, they're writing their GL code on the receipt, you may want to consider taking advantage of some of the other online options that you have with the purchasing program. So in this case, this is just a sample from US Bankers Access Online that we utilize. But they're very, like a lot of the programs are similar, but they allow you to set up your coding segment. So you can, if you have, so it gives you the opportunity to have those card holders code the transactions for you before they come to the business office, rather than handing the written in receipt and hard to read what code they actually put on there. A lot of, in this case, they have the opportunity to either pre-format populate the different segments, or if you would like, you can pre-populate the information in the system and have a drop down so that your card holders can hopefully grab the correct GL code. In most cases, this is all custom to your needs. So if you only have one segment, if you want 35 characters in the box and you want to code it with just one code and call it GL code, you have that opportunity. In this case, like I said, you can pre-populate it. In many cases, you have the opportunity to go ahead and split transactions. So if someone makes purchases from multiple departments in the building and you need to allocate it accordingly, you can split these transactions. So it's a really nice feature. Some of them actually, in this system here, you're allowed to save favorites. So when your card holders, even though you can isolate the codes that they see. So what they do is they set up divisions. So all of the accounting people, these are the 25 codes they can see. So you would earmark that. Then the next thing would be, say, the business office. And these are probably all the codes are probably available for them. But if you have maybe the teachers, each building may have 5 different codes for each of the teachers, so that you have that opportunity to make sure they really select the correct code. And then if they have a lot of codes and they really use a bunch of just maybe 5 or 10 of them, they have the ability to save them as favorites. So rather than looking up each code, they can just set the code and name it. So like supplies or office equipment, things like that. The next thing is you have the ability to also include a description. So a lot of the purchases that are made, the descriptions aren't that great. It really depends on the vendor and how willing they are to provide additional information. So in here, you can actually have the opportunity for them to tell you why the purchase was made. So they can give you a better description that you can use when you're reconciling or when they're reconciling. And then the other thing is, again, this is the ability to attach receipts. So a lot of programs, in addition to coding the transactions, you may have the opportunity to actually attach a receipt to the individual transactions. I'm gonna pop back. There's like a little paper clip. In most cases, it's a paper clip. And you can go ahead and just select from your browser the actual image, so you can actually attach it to the system. A lot of the places, they do store these for 2 years, or basically for 2 years, you'll have full access to see these images. And then, so when auditors come in, you'll be able to, they come and say, hey, I want to see that December purchase, December 19th purchase for $50, and now you're scrambling through paper. You can hop in the system and actually pull it. A lot of them also give you the ability to download all of the attachments, and it's really important just to put it on the system and have it stored on your own so that you always have access, so you can keep it and retain it longer than just the 2 years. And then approving transactions. So this is a post-purchase approval. You also would have the opportunity to add, if you'd like, have the person's manager review the transaction before it is sent to the business office. So basically, they would be able to go through and just see what they coded, what the attachment was, because there'll be little PDFs for the approver. So they'll be able to go ahead and see the actual receipt. So it takes some of the, like, it gets seen once before by their direct manager before it goes to the business office. So it's very helpful. But again, it is post-purchase. So the purchase has already been made. The other thing, it's very important to make sure that you integrate this with your accounting or ERP software. At a minimum, you should be able to, if you decide not to do any type of coding or anything like that, at a minimum, you should be able to pull it into your software. Like, Skyward and Munis, Tyler, SDS, Smart, QuickBooks, they all have the capacity to take the information in. It's just really trying to find the right format and how the columns need to be laid out. But if you start driving the behavior away from checks, the last thing that you want to be doing is having to re-input all that data. So we really work with you to try to get that import working. We have available to us, custom teams too. So, it's basically the vendor will be able to provide you with a specification sheet. And that specification sheet would give us the column layout, the formats, because dates, all of them have different date formatting. It's really will save time if to not have to rekey. And like I said, most systems will take in the data. It's just, we really want to increase the efficiencies that the program does offer. So with that, I think before that, do we have any questions?
We do have a question.
Okay.
Do you need a receipt? For instance, if a teacher travels and they go out to eat, don't we need a receipt to prove there's nothing illegal being charged, such as alcohol?
Yes. So you should always get, they should always turn in a receipt for everything that they have. And this doesn't give you receipts. This is just a mechanism to store, or the online platform. But yes, everybody, there should be no expense. And it's even stricter on the department cards. So like if you don't have an individual, it's really important that the receipts are turned in. You should have a template for lost receipts if that's the case as well. But yeah, you want to make sure that they always have receipts.
And I see that Tiffany has her hand raised and is going to contribute something profound. I have no.
I'm sure of it, right? I just wanted to kind of, as a former business official who our district did use the P card program, and now at MSBA we actually as staff use the P card program as well. So just a couple of things in my experience with it, and that is as a business official, I will say that there was one P card in my district. It had my name on it as the business manager, and I was the sole user, right? When we issued purchase orders, we would use it as an accounts payable payment program. We would do online orders. It was attached to our Amazon account, and all of those things that have been that Beth talked about earlier. But what really intrigues me, and why I think it's important for districts to take a look at the P card, because a lot of you may say, what, we have a credit card through our local bank, or whatever the situation, and how is this any different? What I really want to emphasize is that the opportunity, for example, for the travel cards, because never would I ever have sent the one and only P card that my district had with a staff person, superintendent, principal, teacher, or anybody else would have ever sent that card with them as a travel card. But the opportunities that are available through this program now to have those flexible cards to be able to send with people when they travel, provided that flexibility to then reduce that need to do a reimbursement check. But when Jackie's question through the chat, that does not negate those travel cards or supply cards, or whatever those options that are available, do not negate the need for those receipts, because it's, we know from a from a procedural standpoint, that's very important for us in the school district environment. We did not reimburse a beer purchase, right? You could get your cheeseburger reimbursed, but not that beer. So in applying that logic to this program, those receipts would still need to be turned in, whether it was through the system itself and uploaded or whether it was a paper receipt. But then your procedure document would say, if you check out the travel card, or if you use the P card for going to a conference or whatever, you turn that in. If there are non-eligible expenses, you're going to need to reimburse the school district for those, which is what we do here at MSBA. If I use my P card for something that is not an eligible MSBA related purchase, then I would reimburse. If I used it by accident, for example, to purchase something in my Amazon Prime account or whatever, that wasn't work related, then I would reimburse per our purchasing procedures. So the receipts, I still turn in as an MSBA staff person, every detailed receipt for every purchase that I have. Those are reviewed on a monthly basis by Joel Stencil, our CFO. But the end result is that at the end of the year, MSBA gets about $20,000 back in rebates for our purchases. So it's not a small amount of money. But we also have the flexibility then to do the travel cards, to do the supply cards. And in hindsight, when I apply this program to my district experience, that would have given me opportunities that I would not have pursued or not been able to pursue under a traditional card system. So I think that's, the reason why we wanted to have the webinar today and just talk about some of those extras is the differences in the opportunities of the types of cards that are available that may not be available through the program that you're using now.
Thanks, Tiffany. I knew you would have something profound to add.
Mind blown, right?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Because it's real, it's experiences that you have that it really adds to what's going on. So was that it on the questions before
That's all. I think you can.
All right. I'll move on. So this section is more about best practices, just kind of give you some ideas of, like different things that you can deploy, things that you should have in place. So I'm going to just run through those right now. The one thing that I always stress the difference because of these types of cards, because they're purchasing cards, P cards, they allow you to put controls that just a normal credit card wouldn't allow you. I remember when my kids went off to college, I wanted to give them a credit card. And when they told me that all the cards, their card would have the same as our card, I got a little scared, and then they ended up getting a gift card instead. But with these cards, you not only have a credit limit on each of the cards, but you can put controls on the cards. So all of the cards that we offer in our program have cash advances blocked, cash equivalents. So if someone wanted to go buy a money order, or you try to use it with Venmo, that'll be blocked because it's considered cash. We block gambling, certain 800 numbers, certain online websites, pawn shops, different types of shops that are just not appropriate for the cards. But you as a program administrator have the ability to set a whole bunch of other merchant category codes. So merchant category codes just refer to a code. So when a vendor decides they want to take a credit card as a form of payment, they sign up for a merchant category. So, for the most part, people are all what they say. So airlines are all in one set of merchant category codes, and car rentals and airports and, airline tickets. Sometimes like an Amazon, even though they are no longer, they do more than just books. They sell pretty much everything, but they still come through 90% of the time as a bookstore purchase. So, merchant category codes, if you have travel cards and you would prefer that your card holders not make those purchases on their individual issued card that they got from the district, you can block airlines, hotels, and travel related expenses on those individual cards so that they're forced to put it on the travel cards So you have the ability to set different codes. You also have the ability to put spend limits. So say you give someone a maybe a $5,000 monthly credit limit, but you have internal policies that say after at $1,000, they're required to get a second signature. So you'll have the ability to put a single purchase limit on there of $1,000. So as they go to make the purchase, if they try to make a purchase for $1,500, that card will be declined because it's breaking this control that you put in place. You also can, some people have volume limits. So once the card, like they can put how many times the card is used. So if you say, hey, over a course of a month, they should never use the card more than 4 times. So you have the ability to really customize how these cards are used. So it's not just a credit limit. You have the ability to control the purchases. I always say get started first. It's something that, generally speaking, you can always change. The other nice feature is that it's set at the card level. So if you have 10 cards and you say the superintendent kind of has free reign, going to be making all the purchase, I don't want them to come to me for the card. You can have individual or subsets of cards with the different rules on them. I have someone with 500 cards, and I think it's like 200 of them are for teacher, like supply budgets. And all of those cards they have single dollar limits on them. So they don't even want, they don't want them to make large purchases at one time. So when they have a certain threshold, you can set that, and they all have different functionality. So putting the controls in place is a great way to control how the cards are used. Policies and procedures. This is a major thing that it's really helpful, especially when the auditors come in and they want to make sure that you have proper policies with your cardholders in place. So you really want to make sure that your cardholders know, no matter who it is, what they can and cannot use the cards for. You have to be very specific and clear about their role and their responsibility, because it is a district issued card. So I always say, if you are given a card, you should sign. We have something called a cardholder agreement. It's a 1-pager. It's really quick, but it's that acknowledgement from your cardholder that they are taking responsibility with the card and that they know what they can and cannot do with the card. We have people, it's very interesting to see what people put in these card agreements. In a lot of cases, I see that if the cardholder doesn't tell the vendor that you're tax exempt, they put the responsibility on that cardholder. And so they'll say in the agreement, if you fail to tell the vendor that you're tax exempt and they charge sales tax, you have to negotiate with the vendor to get the reimbursement of those sales taxes, or you have to pay them yourself. So it's one way to make sure that the cardholders know their responsibility, because if they're told they're going to have to pay for it, they'll be most likely tell their vendor and make sure that they're aware of it. But no cardholder should be given the card without having them sign off on those rules. I even have started with the department cards. One of the things about the department card is it doesn't have everybody's name on it. So I've seen in instances where, like, coaches, don't want to call out coaches, but sometimes the coaches are given boys sports, or athletes, athletics 1, no, athletics 2, athletics 3, and they save the card to the computer. So what happens is they're going along and they're like, well, I can get ready for the season. I'm going to use the card. Oh, I have it on file, and they do it. So now unfortunately, the business office is running around looking to see why or who made this purchase, because no one checked it out, and here's this purchase appearing. So one of the things that we've been adding to this cardholder agreement is that they will not save the card information on file on the system. So we definitely promote, don't, if you don't, it's a privilege to have a card. It's not a right. You're making their life easier, not having to use their card and waiting to be reimbursed for the expense. So they should sign off and agree to the terms for having that privilege. So that's on the written policies and procedures. And then empowering I'm a big proponent for empowering your cardholders. Most online platforms, there's some that really only allow like one or two program administrators, but empowering your cardholders by giving them online access to see their card activity. So by empowering them, it would eliminate hopefully a lot of calls that the business office fields. You have someone the card and they're like, my card got declined, or, I how much money do I have left on my card? Well, they would be able to see this. In most cases, if it's allowed that you have multiple sign on or people that can sign on, the card holder would be set up as a card holder. So they would be able to go in and they would only see themselves unless you, gave them more, like if it was maybe an administrative person that needed to pull statements. But it empowers them to be able to see things that they would otherwise call. It's a group of people that are very busy and they don't need to be interrupted for doing that. And then if they can pull their monthly statements for you. So even if you don't have them coding the transactions, they should be able to pull that monthly statement. I hear stories about the administrators sometimes pulling, emailing everybody their statements, and there's no need for that. It's a simple, most of the home screens have an icon that they can click and they can just grab the statement from there. So definitely I'm an advocate for empowering your cardholders. And I also believe that if you want, training is a good thing to get them started, so that this way they know where to find the information they need without calling in. With that, I'll stop at this section. Is there any questions about the controls or procedures? Or we have samples. If anybody doesn't have a policies and procedures manual, we do have those. If anybody's interested, they're welcome to email me to get those samples.
A question, Beth, and I'm not sure if it relates more to you or perhaps to Tiffany. One of the questions in the chat is just around, I'm a business manager or a superintendent in a smaller district. I have a credit card from my local bank, and those relationships are really important. Why would I want to consider this versus that relationship? And so that's why I say maybe it's more of a Tiffany question because she's worn that hat in local school districts.
I think it's a really good question, right? Because a lot of times as business officials, we're faced with that. Do you work with the local insurance agent versus do you work with like a larger broker? Do you use that bank card versus versus a P card program like this? And I think that it's really up to the individual district to make that decision. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to skirt the question, but having been through it, I know that it's very, very situational. In some districts that work now, and in the discussions that I've had that work largely by check, they don't put the volume of transactions through a credit card that would maybe not to diss Beth and the P card program, right? But if you don't have the volume through the card, it may not be beneficial to go through to get the rebates that are associated with the P card. If you don't provide the coaches or the travelers or the teachers with those unique purchasing cards, or take advantage of those products that are available through this program, it may not make sense. But if there is the volume, if there is interest in maybe decreasing the amount of reimbursement checks, that local bank program may not have the flexibility for some of those things. But again, I have been in that position to make that, and I don't know that, or to consider that argument, and it's really something that at the district level that you have to decide whether your specific situation in terms of purchasing volume or the importance of those relationships is something that's worth changing what you're currently doing. Having kind of been on both sides, both in the school district where we had the one and only one card, but it was a P card, but also going through other situations where we had to really weigh out the value of those relationships. I can 100% see where that would be a decision that you would want to weigh out before you would proceed going forward. So how's that for a non-answer, other than acknowledging that it's certainly a factor?
Well, and I think the kind of those indicators that you had to around volume and both flexibility and control. I mean, that
Right.
tells me, at least if I'm the business official, like, well, how am I going to make that decision based on what? Because I know what the relationship is, and yet I don't maybe know what the P card is. So,
Right. Well, and I
Jackie
think
thinks
that
it's a great answer, and so do I.
woo, and I really think that it's really a matter of I think turning it around and looking at maybe how, if you were to decide, you may not, as a using the card at a local bank, use it to automatically pay the gas bill or the electric bill or some of those monthly transactions. I think if you were looking at changing the way that you do things now, it's really a matter of thinking outside of the box to say, how are the ways that I could utilize this in order to increase that spend amount, decrease the number of checks, and maybe leverage that rebate. So if you're just putting through a handful of transactions a month on a bank card, it may not be, quite honestly, worth looking at the switch. But if it's something where it's like, you know what, we're staffing is tight, we need to decrease, checks take the time and money to cut, and we want to change how we do things, then it may be worth taking a look.
Thank you. Any other
Yeah.
questions from the group before Beth continues? Okay, I think we're good to go.
Right. In the home stretch. All right. So I just kind of put together some of the highlights just for you guys to just think about when you are assessing the programs that are out there. There's, every bank offers some form type of program. They just, everybody just has different nuances, but things that you should always look for. You shouldn't have to pay for it. And that includes leaving extra balances at the bank level. So if they say, oh yeah, we add, another, $50,000 to your balance on file, then yeah, it'll be free for you. So you shouldn't have to pay for any fees right now. You should be able to have 5 cards or 50 cards if you need to. And then transactions shouldn't cost anything. Online platforms shouldn't cost you anything as well. It's all part of those programs. So just keep that in mind. And again, make sure that you have the ability. I've seen programs where they only let the administrator log in. So there's really a lot of benefits too. So make sure that you have full, like access and support, and your card holders have access and support, because sometimes, down the back of the card, they can call in if they, they're questioning a card charge. They can, again, when in the programs themselves, individuals are set up with roles. I should have probably mentioned that on the technology side, but in thinking about it, if you're a program administrator, you have full access overseeing everything that you need. That means you have the ability to change credit limits and set those controls that I talked about. A card holder would just be a card holder. So the card holder would only see themselves. They cannot change. They say, hey, this month I need an extra $1,000. They have no ability to do things like that. So you just want to make sure that you have all those controls in place as well. But for the most part, a card holder would only see themselves unless you wanted them to see that. And then, again, central billing. One of the things that you want is to have a program where you have 1 or 2 debits. If you have 50 cards, you don't want to have 50 debits hitting your account for the payments of each of the card. So we recommend, look for cards that are centrally billed. And then again, the corporate liability just means that your social security number is not involved, or none of your card holders are have that involved as well. And then Loss and stolen liability, again, for the most part, the banks are responsible for fraudulent charges. However, you do have a responsibility that you reconcile within 60 days. The great part is most of you guys do that, so that's not an issue. But, again, that should be like a standard that you have 60 days to notify them of any fraudulent activity, and that you'll be reimbursed. The other thing is there's something called misuse insurance that's out there that you should ask about as well. Misuse, like the biggest thing when you hear boards, they don't want to give out credit cards because in the past, there's been abuse at the higher level. So the programs will offer misuse insurance, and you want to make sure that coverage is there. Misuse means if someone that you entrusted with the card misuses it and does not enrich the district. They're not using the card for that business. They're doing it for themselves. So you want to make sure that comes. And then, of course, if you can, earn that cash rebate on that spend. I think that was, and then these are just procedures for success, but I know our time is running out. So I just wanted to, I think it kind of reiterates everything that was, that we went through today. So I guess we already had questions, but I want to certainly thank you all for your time today. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thanks so much, Beth and Tiffany, for jumping in to help from that district perspective too. Any other questions from the group before we have you get back to the other things on your calendar today?